program that I teach works the best for people over 40, 45. It goes deeper into the mindset change. That's why it's sustainable. But because it's slightly different, people who still have that willpower and that, young people, they are like, oh, I'll try something different. I'll go and get a
Yes.
personal trainer and I'll try.
Yes.
So it's not that you are not being able to sustain your old ways anymore, or old ways that worked anymore. It's just how we're built. By the time you get to your 40s, you have willpower, but because you tried and failed so much, you lose that
Yeah.
willpower. So willpower is
Yeah.
not a way to change your lifestyle. It's a way to maybe help you to kickstart it, right? To help you, to motivate you
Yeah.
at the beginning, but not to sustain it. And also you have
Yeah.
to remember your body is very, very smart. It adapts. So when you
Yeah.
introduce something new to it, new diet, new regime, new routine, because of the shock,
Yeah.
it will work, right? But the second time, the
Yes.
third time, it will know what comes and it will
Yes.
adapt.
Yes.
I used to be a binge eater, right? For many, many years. And I also tried diets. I tried starving myself, anything, right? We've all tried it. I've been in the worst situations, like a heroin addict. I've always been a believer. I quit drinking several years ago. I also used to smoke when I was younger, and I smoked a lot, chain smoker. I've always had that, what they call an addictive personality. And I quit my addictions overnight without any struggle, right? And I never knew why and how. I never tried to analyze it. I just left it behind. But then when I found myself struggling with binge eating, I realized that I'm doing it wrong, that I have to approach it the same way I approached my other addictions, which is basically changing the lifestyle. So people always said to me, you are so strong, you have so much willpower. It wasn't willpower. It was basically totally changing association with that substance and with that behavior. So for me, any kind of substance, even caffeine, I have to stay clear from caffeine. I only drink coffee when I go to Italy or to Spain because it's just so delicious. I don't drink coffee anywhere else because I know that it elevates me and I love the
Yeah.
high,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
addicted to that dopamine kick. And I
Yeah.
realized
Yeah.
that food was doing the same to me. And I knew that I knew I had to approach it the same way I did with mindset. I knew I needed to break first discover and then demolish the beliefs that were keeping me, the associations with food that I had that were keeping me binge eating. And I knew that once I approached that, the behaviors will come naturally, the healthier behaviors and the behaviors that I wanted to have, the not eating, not binging, will become naturally as I approach my limiting beliefs. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's how you change your mindset, right? And there is a process
Yeah.
that I use, and there is a method that I use to help people do it. So once I did it, I had an overnight transformation. Of
Wow.
course, it then
Wow.
takes, right, there is a then combination of willpower and changing beliefs, and you keep working and you keep addressing it. But the main breakthrough for me, it was literally, I was sitting and I was thinking and I was going inside myself, and I had an aha moment, and I was like, oh my God, that's it. This is it. I got it now. Exactly the
Wow.
same as with alcohol and cigarettes and everything else, and
Yeah.
relationships, right? When you have
Yeah.
to break from like a toxic relationship, exactly the same thing, an aha moment, and that was it for me. So that was
Yeah.
my journey. And it was just, my background used to be in advertising. I worked for advertising agencies and media companies. But once I did that a few years ago, I just thought it's just all these years of struggle, decades of struggle for myself, and an overnight change. I want to be working with this. That was the first benefit that I noticed, clear mind. Weight loss was just a side effect, funnily enough.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
wasn't,
Yeah.
of course, me wanting to change it was my weight and feeling comfortable with myself. But as I changed, that became just a side effect, and totally naturally and effortlessly, because I just stopped eating I just stopped binging, and I started realizing that I'm more open to people. I rebuilt a relationship with my dad that I hadn't spoken to in many years. I just had more patience and understanding to people, and empathy, and I just became a normal person. I
Yeah.
became the
Yeah.
the best version of myself, if you want to call it, without the dark cloud that was doing my heading and creating the aggression and creating distancing myself from people and all that. I just became a normal person. Binge eaters, and I used to do it myself, is very self-blame, self-negative talk, right? And my method addresses that as well. We got to look at the food industry. And that's a big part of what I teach as well, the way the foods are being made. Okay, so the food industry is either the first or the second largest industry in the first world economies. Right, they are massive. I recently spent a few months in the Dominican Republic, and my neighbor was a finance guy from Unilever, and he told me they have to make profit of 70% on foods because otherwise it's a loss for the company. So it's massive. It's massive. Most of it goes back in marketing because, of course, it's brand creating. It's the creating the associations, right? Food is everywhere. Celebration, eat. Somebody dies, eat. Somebody is right everywhere. Family, you love your children, give them food. They got themselves everywhere with marketing. But also they have all the money they need to hire scientists, labs, experts to make the foods as pleasurable as possible. Right? So they go right straight into the pleasure pathways of your brain, and they artificially stimulate the pleasure pathways in your brain. So the fact that you can't stop eating the foods, it's not your fault. All right? The foods have been designed that way. It's not secret anymore. It's not a secret at all. It's just the way we are brainwashed is that we don't make that association between what we put in our mouth and how dangerous it actually is. So I guess the main message from that is that it's not the fact that you can't stop eating the foods. It's got nothing to do with you being faulty or there being something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Your healthy appetite has been hijacked by the food industry. Okay, and just to give you an idea of what happens, how powerful it is when pleasure centers get artificially stimulated. I'll tell you about an experiment that was made on rats a while ago. A couple of scientists connected electrodes directly to the pleasure pathways of the brains of rats. And they also connected those electrodes to a lever. And they gave the rats the lever to press and self-stimulate. And those scientists just wanted to observe how those rats would behave with being able to do that. Do you know what happened? In a matter of hours, they stopped losing interest in everything. And in a few days, they started dying because they weren't drinking, they weren't eating. Female rats were not interested in nursing their pups. Male rats were not interested in mating with female rats in heat. They basically abandoned all their survival natural instincts just to self-stimulate. And you can relate to that feeling, right? It's such a strong force that like against everything else, you're still gonna go and reach for that, for that high, for that pleasure. So the coaching that I do is like cutting the cord between the pleasure and the stimuli. So you will be able to be around the foods that you're now associating with pleasure and comfort, and they won't do anything for you, basically. So when they disconnected those rats, because what happened, because the rats started dying, they had to start disconnecting them. So they disconnected the wire from the lever, but the rats were still connected in their brains. But they were pressing the lever and there was no stimulation. Again, in hours, they were less and less interested in pressing it. And then in a few days, they just realized pleasure is not coming from. So the way we do it is I help you to mentally disassociate yourself from the part of your brain where the urges and the cravings are coming from. So at the back of your brain here, at the bottom of your skull, you have the most primitive part of your brain. It's developed in humans first, and it's responsible for survival, and it's interested mostly in eating, mating, and killing. Very, very simple, very primitive. And it's called the lizard brain, the reptilian brain. It's called the lizard brain because it's the dominating part of the brains of lizards, right? So when you think about it, that's what lizards are, very, very primitive. And all they know what to do is eat, mate, and kill. Okay. Yeah. But we as humans, we've developed a very, very sophisticated part of the brain, and it's called the prefrontal cortex, and it sits right here. And that's where all your aspirations are, goals, logic, language, music, anything that you can associate with being human, That's where it lives. It's your higher cognition, your decision making for your brain. That's where you live.
Yeah.
Most important thing is that your higher cognition, your prefrontal cortex, is wired to override your lizard brain. Okay, in a moment of heat, when you're facing and you facing that craving, you are run by your lizard brain. Those cravings and the urges are coming from the lizard brain. It sees food, it wants to eat. And because it's being targeted with those really addictive foods, it just wants to eat. Okay, so you are wired to override your reptilian brain. Right now, because you're so dysregulated, you are being run by your reptilian brain. My coaching teaches, it basically trains your cortex to override that reptilian brain. So it's basically moving your decision making from impulse to intellect, which as a human you build, right? So to give you an illustration of how that works, how that mechanism works. So when you get really mad at somebody, sometimes probably like, oh, I could kill that person. How often do you go and kill them? So the impulse to kill, perceived danger, reptilian brain kicks in, kill. And then your cortex kicks in and goes like, oh no, I don't want to kill that person because I don't kill people, because we live in a society where we don't kill people, because I have dinner plans tonight, because I don't want to go to jail, blah, 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 right? A lot of logical reasons. We use the training that I teach you uses that mechanism, right? Trains those neural connections to build based on those exercises. So you will be, when you're faced with that eat impulse, I will help you train your cortex to find logical reasons why you actually don't want to do it. The same way it is with killing. Or when you're walking on the street and you want to pee, you don't just do it on the sidewalk, right? Because you are a grown, logical person, civilized person who knows that you need to find the toilet and you need to do it that way. You will learn and practice to do the same thing with making decisions. So the biggest breakthroughs happen in the first month. Sometimes even after the first couple of sessions, sometimes even after the consultation, because the whole idea of separation kind of resonates with people. The first couple of weeks to a first month, you will see noticeable changes in your way of thinking and in the way you're actually looking at those foods. Neuroplasticity is basically how your brain changes. Your brain, scientists used to think that your brain is hardwired, and as you're born with it, that's how you've got it, right? It's not true. So they discovered recently, some years ago, that it's not actually, that cells of the brain restructure themselves, rebuild, and move all the time. The actual physical parts of the brain, not any woohoo kind of magic, right? The actual cells. And it's called neuroplasticity. So it's basically neurons get connected. Neurons are connected to each other, and the impulses go from one neuron to another in a neural connection. That's how you build a habit, right? So as you use that circuit, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Each time you use it, it gets stronger. If you stop using it even once, even if when you're distracted just once and do something different, a different neural connection starts building and this one dies. So of course, you'll get, what happens is you'll get the first breakthrough. It will be an aha moment. It will give you that elevated, I say will, because that's what typically happens. Of course, it's different for everybody, right? But you get that aha moment that kind of makes the change easy for you, but then it takes time to that connection to die and that connection to build. New challenges will come through, right? Which will have to be addressed. But the main, the biggest aha moments usually within the first month. It's, even though it might have started as a coping mechanism, post-trauma, perhaps, but it then takes on its own, it becomes its own beast. So I have clients who have gone through therapy for binge eating, addressing the trauma, and they are now more self-aware, yet they are still binging. Because it doesn't address the fact that foods are being so addictive, and the actual food industry, it goes only into your feelings, which is fine, that's how it originated, but then it just becomes, then you are no longer, even if you started because of trauma, you are no longer numbing your trauma, you're just looking for a high. Often when clients come to me, we approach binging, they stop binging, emotional histories comes up, the more helpful way for people to address binge eating first and then address the actual trauma. Because as long as you're binging, a lot of the negative emotions come from the binging itself. We had 2 clients that didn't see results, but they just didn't. One of them didn't want to, was very, very defensive, and the other one didn't have time. Of course, I can't promise you that changes will come. When exactly the changes will come? Typically, as I said to you, they come in the first month. But there is no way, if we both put work in it, there is no way, I can't see any way that you won't see any changes, because it's all based on the beliefs. And as we talk, the more we talk, the more of those beliefs in you I will discover, and I will be challenging them. I will be challenging the beliefs, because the negative beliefs, the limiting beliefs will come from that beast. Even if it sounds a little uncomfortable for you, you know, something that a belief that you're really, really attached to might sound a little uncomfortable, but as you think of it, actually, this is a good point, and that's how you do it, because we all have those beliefs and we are so unaware of them. You know, I have people sometimes coming to me in December because they want to start working with me in January, because Christmas is all about eating, right? What a belief is that? Is Christmas really all about eating? Right? And the moment I ask that question, they are like, oh my God, it's not. It's about family. It's about being together. It's about, and suddenly they want to work in December and they go through Christmas with the new belief, with spending time with the family, and they are around the food and they eat what they enjoy without feeling guilty. I don't even remember what my life used to be like. It's just, there is no, you can't even compare it. I was an addict. I just wanted to sit in front of TV, have 2 bags of sweets around me, and I was happy for half an hour. And then miserable for the rest of the night and the rest of the week, until I binged again and killed that feeling temporarily. And that's how my life became.